The first reactions to the Naked Gun starring Liam Neeson and Pamela Anderson are in, and it is glorious as captured in the Hollywood Reporter. And also, the X-Men director Jake Schreier, having come off Thunderbolts to rousing success by the fans and critics alike, has stated that the X-Men that he's been given authority over will be heading into a different direction from all other X-Men feature film or television that has existed before it. And last but not the least, Beverly Afaglo, one of Ghana's talented actress, has chimed in on what she thinks is a contributory factor to the state of the Ghanaian film industry. We're delving into these stories and more right here on the Film Mandate. My name is Papa Otu. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Film Mandate, where I bring to you movie news, reviews, and reactions, both from the African front and international scene. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Film Mandate. So, we'll be delving into the very first story. So, Naked Gun's trailer was released a couple of days, weeks ago, and you had the internet buzzing with excitement, looking at how fun and entertaining these trailers were. And now finally it has screened to a couple of fans, even though the official worldwide release is on the August 1st, that is this coming Friday. So let's take a look at this article published in the Hollywood Reporter that captures the the reactions of fans who went to see these screenings. And it says that the Naked Gun first reactions from the premiere, the fourth film in the comedy franchise, will be released on August 1st, written by Abed Rahman. And this is what it says, that it's been a 31-year wait, but the latest addition to the Naked Gun franchise is finally here. Full critics' reviews for the film drop on Wednesday, but fans of the classic spoof comedy franchise can breathe a huge sigh of relief as the early social media reaction from Monday's New York premiere and press screenings is extremely effusive. The new iteration of The Naked Gun stars Liam Neeson as Lieutenant Frank Drebin Jr., the son of Police Squad legend Frank Drebin, played in the franchise's previous projects by the late Leslie Nielsen. Pamela Anderson, Paul Waterhauser, Kevin Durand, Danny Houston, Lisa Koshy, Cody Rannells, and CCH Pounder round out the cast. The Lonely Island's Akiva Schaffer directs the reboot, and Seth MacFarlane produces a project that Paramount has had in the works for decades. The film franchise is based on the 1982 ABC television series Police Squad, a spoof on police procedural dramas that introduced Nielsen as Drebin and was co-created and written by David Zucker, Jim Abrahams, and Jerry Zucker. Though the TV show was short-lived, the creative team reunited for the first feature in the franchise, 1988's The Naked Gun from the files of Police Squad. Two more sequels were released: The Naked Gun 2.5, then The Smell of Fear in 1991, and Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult in 1944. 1994. Quite interesting titles, quite some interesting titles. And The Naked Gun will be released in theaters worldwide on August 1st. Before the film's release, the full critics' reviews read on for a sampling of early reaction from Monday's premiere and press screenings. So David Ehrlich says that there are 6 different scenes in The Naked Gun that made me laugh so hard. I cried. Even the title card is funny. I wrote so dumb complimentary in my notebook several times. So that is really a positive review of reaction to the film. Dancing Down in Summerland says that Akiva Schaffer's the Naked Gun is a freaking miracle. A contemporary comedy that's tightly scripted, under 90 minutes, hilariously funny, and has a simple, meaningful message about the state of the world. And it ends with one of its best laughs. Stay for the credits. So that's quite a high praise for the film, looking at the fact that it looks like from this description, it leaves nothing to chance, meaning that it is well paced and perhaps there are no boring moments. So that's really good. To even have it tightly under 90 minutes is a good thing for the film, leaving no room for error. So that is quite good. That's quite an observation. So Mike Ryan says that I've seen the Naked Gun twice now, and it's really funny. It's on par with Two and a Half and 33 One Third. That is really a high praise as well. That's really a high praise for most often. If you watch films, the first film is good, the second might even be better, but the third always fails. But it looks like for the fourth film to be on par with what the previous films did, then it means that's really high praise for that. Let's check what Shariah uh, Chawla, pardon me, I'm not getting the name right. The Naked Gun 2025 might have laughed harder doing this than any movie this year. Really clever and very self aware and captures the original's charm well. Also, one of Liam Neeson's best performances in so long. Loved Pamela Anderson here too. What a blast. So that's also quite a high praise for that, for it to have been the was it called, laughed harder than any other movie this year, meaning that it's possible for him. This is the best comedic film for 2025. So that's quite a high praise for him as well, for the film as well. So the Naked Gun, that is Epic Film Guy, says that Naked Gun is an outrageously hilarious, balls to the wall laugh fest that perfectly captures what made us fall in love with this franchise. Neeson and Anderson are pure comedy gold. I really missed movies this funny and unapologetically silly. Leslie Nielsen would be proud. So that's quite a high praise as well. That's quite, and of late, films of this nature have not been done. I think the last, perhaps not um as outlandish as this that I have seen, may be that of the Pink Panther, starring Steve Martin, maybe to that extreme, and a little bit of I think Johnny English. Yeah, Johnny English. So it's good that we are having these kinds of films back in the cinemas to provide some form of variety in terms of comedy. So that's quite a high praise as well. That's quite a funny picture. But Randy Jones also says that big, they just don't make these like this anymore. Vibes from the Naked Gun 2025. Funny as hell. I think I ruptured a spine or a rib cage or a cheekbone because of how hard I was laughing throughout it. Kev just took me to Gag City and I want to go back. So that's really a positive praise. The Naked Gun 2025, we used to make things in this country voice. It turns out we are evidently still making things in this country. And that is by Charles Bramesco. I don't know whether there's a line from the movie, but it sounds like it. It sounds like it will be a line from the movie. And then Joey Maggetson says that the Naked Gun is hilarious. Having just watched the original three, it would have been easy for this one to feel like a pale imitation. Instead, it feels like a Naked Gun movie in all its damn glory. I laughed so hard. More comedies on the big screen. So that's quite also a high praise as well for that as well. So, and Jesse Hassinger says that the Naked Gun becomes competitive for funniest movie of the year within about 10 minutes. Wow, that is quite a start for a movie, for it to be that competitive in regards to how funny, uh, fighting for the funniest title or movie of the year. And it says that, and it doesn't really run out of gas. Probably better in a lot of ways than the Zaka sequels. And I say that as someone who has seen them like 10 times each. So that's from Jesse Hassinger, and that is quite a high praise, meaning that the setup of the film itself was done really well, knowing that coming to going into watching the film, it is a pure slapstick comedy with no bars hold. So then if it lives up to the expectation, just as he has said, then it means that the Zuckers did something really, really right with regards to this film. And or Schaefer did really, really right with regards to this film. So Eric Machen also says that the Naked Gun exists at the intersection of silly and smart, reinventing Liam Neeson as a comedic icon for a new generation of film goers to laugh out loud on with to laugh out loud with until it hurts. Theatrically released comedy is back. So that's quite a high praise. Drew Magari says that I'll have a review later this week, but I went to a Naked Gun screening tonight, and that shit brought the whole house down. So that's quite a praise. And The Naked Gun by Edward Douglas says that The Naked Gun was hilarious. Being a long time since I've been at a press screening where film critics are laughing so hard. Maybe Shaun of the Dead was the last time. I not only recommend you see it, but I beg you to see it because I definitely want more of this. Yeah, so I get what it means. If more people don't see this film, the probability of a sequel will not even be in the conversation. So as more people get to see it and it makes its box office, makes a good box office money or profit off the budget, then perhaps the studio Paramount may green light a sequel. So I get what he has to say. Yeah. Akiva Schaffer, that's David Gonzalez. Let me take this as the last one. The Naked Gun is a breath of fresh air in modern comedy. Genuinely hilarious, blissfully brief, and a pitch perfect homage to Leslie Nielsen's 80s comedy classic without feeling a tired cover band. Never playing it safe, it follows the golden rule be funny. So that is really, really good. Uh, through the total line through all this has it that it is really, really good, and that is indeed some high praise for it. So it goes on and on. There are several, I think, yeah, there are several critics who share their um, opinions or reactions to this film, and I think it is indeed a good thing for the film, seeing that all majority definitely is not going to be 100%. There's going to be some who may not have liked it the way it seems, but the general consensus here is that it is really a good film, packed with a lot of laughs, as expected of the franchise, having seen the ones that has preceded it. So it does make sense that obviously the if it didn't meet all the expectations of those who have seen the previous one till now, then it does make sense that they would definitely would want to expect such. And it looks like through and through it delivered. However, let me check and see whether the Naked Gun has received any Rotten Tomato score to have a sense of what the 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 critics are. So unfortunately, it's not been uploaded yet. Obviously, since it's not been released officially, I'm sure that's the reason why it's not been updated yet. But regardless, when it does drop, I'll definitely provide information on that. But the general consensus is that the Naked Gun movie is that good for what it is, being an outlandish, hilarious comedy. So obviously, I think it does work, and for those who may not be so certain, even though they may have watched the trailers, I'm sure now you might have been convinced, particularly if any of the critics or any of the fans who share their views are people that you can trust their credit worthiness with regards to film analysis. So I don't know about you. Let me know your thoughts on this movie. I think it's going to be funny because to even have Liam Neeson playing this role with a very serious take about it, but within the context of the film, everything he's doing is simply ridiculous. Makes it even a fun film already. From what I've seen in the trailers, it is exciting already, and I can't wait to go and watch and come and share my views on it. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below concerning with regards to the reactions, the first reactions that have come out. Maybe when the after August 1st and then the ban on the critics reactions are lifted, we may find that to be different. But regardless, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And therefore, moving on from one franchise to another, I'll like to bring to you another property that is highly anticipated, and that is within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, not too long ago, Thunderbolts was released as one of the latest addition uh, to the films that are interconnected within the MCU, and that is the Thunderbolts. And when Thunderbolts was released, arguably, regardless of how it performed on the box office front, most critics were in agreement that the film was well directed, the film was really good. And even seeing the follow up to Thunderbolts being the Fantastic Four, which is also receiving some quite some rave reviews. It looks like Marvel is really righting the ship of making sure that they reclaim what they used to do in the early stages of the cinematic universe. So as it stands now, Jake Schreier, director of Thunderbolts, as we all heard, I think just last week or so, was confirmed to be the director for the X-Men. And there's been so many questions ongoing to find out in which direction is the film going to head in. And this he has confirmed as captured in an article published in the IGN on the IGN website, and it has to say that Marvel's new X-Men reboot will be very youth-oriented and recognizably different from the previous Fox films. So this is written by Tom Phillips, and it says that Marvel's plan to reboot the X-Men franchise will see the iconic superhero team reborn with a very youth-oriented take, featuring a young cast. That's according to Marvel Studios chief Kevin Feige, who has already begun discussing the project, despite it likely not arriving until at least 2028 after the December 2027 launch of Avengers Secret Wars. Still, early work on the project is now very much underway. The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snake's screenwriter Michael Leslie has been developing the reboot script, while Thunderbolts, the new Avengers, director Jake Schreier was recently confirmed to be helming the and now we've heard more from both from Feige and Schreier on what to expect. We had a great experience with Schreier on Thunderbolts, Feige recently told Nerdist. And if you saw that movie, what it did with those character interactions, he also has his pulse on, shall we say, a younger demographic. Not not he's younger than me for sure, but he's tapped into that in a way that I think is important. It was important for Thunderbolts, much more important for X-Men, because X-Men, as it was in the comics, will be a very youth-oriented, focused and cast movie. Speaking to the playlist, Schreier agreed it was fair to assume Marvel's new take on the X-Men would be recognizably different to that seen in the previous X-Men films made by 20th Century Fox, which went on to offer its own version of a younger reboot via its First Class series of prequels. Yeah, I think that's fair to say, Shia acknowledged. There's that red sniper dot out there somewhere, but to be able to explore all of the ideas that are inherent to the rich source material, but also at the scale inherent to the source material, that's like a very rare and fortunate opportunity. So it says it's already been 6 years since the last X-Men film hit theaters, 2019's critical and commercial flop Dark Phoenix, and it will likely be several more before Marvel's new X-Men lineup make their debut. Could we see them introduced earlier than expected via some multiversal shenanigans in Avengers Secret Wars? It's possible. Before then, we know that the upcoming Avengers Doomsday will meanwhile bring back much of Fox's original X-Men cast, including Patrick Stewart, again as Professor X, Ian McKellen as Magneto, Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, and James Marsden as Cyclops. Another appearance by Jackman's Wolverine also seems assured, considering the huge financial success of 2024's Deadpool and Wolverine. Obviously, X-Men is an ensemble film, and inherently, whatever it ends up being is going to deal with complicated characters. Schreier concluded, speaking to Nedis. I just really love what I do, and especially these days, it's not to be taken for granted to get the opportunity to do it and to get to work on things at a scale that really still challenges you. So that is indeed the words of the director Jake Schreier, the director of Thunderbolts, and now the director of the X-Men film that is yet to show up, possibly or obviously after Avengers Secret Wars. So it is indeed fascinating. Most of the things that he's saying, you could actually realize that he captured some of them in the Thunderbolts in terms of the character dynamics and the chemistry between characters. And that is what it looks like, pardon me, he'll be doubling down to do so that he realizes full realized characters. And that is perhaps what Marvel is going for. It may not be as award-winning epic films like we see winning the Oscars, but all the same, it looks like Marvel wants to ensure that these characters are fully fleshed out and very relatable with audiences, so that audiences can feel some form of empathy for them. For those who happen to watch the beginning of the MC universe, talking about almost 18, 17 years ago, with the individual origin stories which were released, we got attached, or we felt like we knew these characters going into Avengers. So it made it very possible for Avengers to blow the lid off the 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 superhero ceiling, that these films couldn't make that much money, and it did, all because people could relate to what they may be going through. People liked them. It felt like we knew these people. They became the new pop culture icons. So obviously, it looks like that's what they'll be doing. But then again, I like the new direction they are going in, because when you look at the Avengers or the MCU as a whole, most of the characters we've come to know are all older folks, perhaps 30s and above, or mid 20s and above. And it looks like that is what we've seen over the period or the lifetime of the MCU till date. Yes, along the way they have sprinkled in a number of characters that are younger, but it looks like now the dream, if they are not even able to achieve the young Avengers, as whether in the film form or series, now it looks like they have the opportunity to, with regards to the Professor Xavier's school, Charles Xavier's school, where a lot of these characters may be based on. And I think that is a nice way to go to change the tempo and feel of the MCU overall, with this the soft reboot or reset that Kevin Feige will be embarking on. And I think that is really good to give audiences different taste. And no wonder they brought in the scribe for Hunger Games to tackle the script of the X-Men, because the Hunger Games seems to be like a young adult kind of property, and therefore it looks like that's where they'll be going. I don't know how young they'll be going, whether they'll be going down further than what we saw in the first class, which I think they will do, because obviously the whole idea is to make sure that it looks completely or very different from the previous iterations of X-Men. I think one of the X-Men films, X-Men Mutants, also went down further, but the tone was entirely different. That was very horror in tone, and I don't think that's the way they'll be going. Definitely, they'll be going the way they've been doing. It may be a little dark, depending on which kind of storyline they adapt. But obviously, I think that is what they are setting out to do, to make sure that it's distinguishably different from what has been in the Marvel films preceding it. So I like the direction in which they are going, and I'm hopeful that for what he's done with the new Avengers or Thunderbolts, he's going to do better with this. And also, he spoke about the issue of the inherent skill as found in the comics. So one of the things I've come to observe is that, having watched Avengers Endgame and how the epic it was in terms of its scale on screen, it does make sense in a way, looking at how, granted, I wouldn't say that the the following properties after Avengers Endgame, some of them not performing, may be due to lack of a small scale. I don't think that's the case at all. I think that would have to do with whether that some of the stories didn't really jive well with a lot of audiences, and that led to perhaps the box office flops or the poor critical reception. So I don't think the scale of it was that which contributes to it. But then there was something about the Avengers Endgame and the scale on which it performed in, that made us have a form of escapism, whether you were watching it in the cinemas or on the streaming services on Disney Plus or whichever platform you did watch it in. So I think what Kevin Feige and Marvel wants to do is to recapture that magic, that feeling of grandeur, where when you go to the cinemas for a brief moment, you forget all your troubles, and I'm sure that's what they want to capture. So obviously, in the comics, which they may be adapting from, I'm sure that is what they may want to do, to let people have that semblance of a feel or taste as to what we did have in Avengers Endgame in particular. So I'm sure that's what I'm just speculating, but for I can glean from the words that he said that possibly that's the angle they will be going. But briefly, before I wrap up this story, I thought of just showing you a little thing on Google. I tried Googling, finding out what potential comics that they may want to base this particular possible iteration of the comic books on, and that I just googled it because I'm not so well versed in some of the comic material. But this is what I found out, and I'm sure it may be helpful, and perhaps the comic book fans who know their comic books very well could confirm or debunk what Google has provided. So this is what it says: that while the specifics of Jake Schreier's upcoming X-Men film are still under wraps, a few comic storylines could be potential inspirations, given the director's interest in the inherently interesting and complex material, particularly the themes of marginalization and societal anxiety about difference. Two prominent possibilities are Gifted and the Dark Phoenix saga. Here's why. Gifted, this storyline, primarily by Joss Whedon and John Cassaday, explores the political and social ramifications of the mutant phenomenon, focusing on the impact of the mutant cure and the ensuing conflicts between those who accept and reject mutants. Schreier's emphasis on the inherently complex material aligns with the political and social themes present in Gifted. So this very particular storyline seems to, I think the last stand, yeah, I think a little bit of the last stand with regards to the mutant who happens to be a cure to the mutant gene, was introduced in the last stand. So I think something of that nature. The Dark Phoenix saga, while the first X-Men movie already partially adapted this storyline, the emotional core of the story dealing with Jean Grey's transformation into the Phoenix could be revisited with a fresh perspective in a new film. Schreier's interest in the interpersonal dynamics of X-Men could make this a compelling narrative choice. And this is quite interesting too, considering the fact that yeah, bits and pieces of it were introduced. And for those who know the comic books very well, did say that the Dark Phoenix saga wasn't really the Dark Phoenix itself wasn't really realized properly, and that the Jean Grey herself it's a multiversal threat or even a worldwide threat, as big or even perhaps bigger than Thanos. So it may even perhaps require a whole phase on its own just to have perhaps Jean Grey end up becoming the villain of that or the antagonist of that phase. So perhaps if they introduce the Dark Phoenix saga as a phase on its own, they could adapt these storylines. And I think yeah, there are many more. But let me just read this briefly. It says, "Well, additionally, the film might draw inspiration from the early years of the X-Men, potentially exploring their formation and early encounters with both allies and enemies, as depicted in the first issues of the X-Men." So Schreier's comment about the X-Men being stand-ins for the persecuted, the misunderstood, the ordered, suggests an interest in the core concept of the X-Men as a metaphor for marginalized groups, which is evident in their initial appearances. Ultimately, the film could blend elements from various storylines and create something entirely new, while still honoring the themes and characters that have resonated with the audiences for decades. So, obviously, most of these storylines that the Google was espousing for us to take a look at, remnants or pieces of it were captured in the before films. So I don't know whether they may go through to some of the material so that those who understand the property very well, or for the reasons why the X-Men comics became what it is, would be realized on screen. So I like the angle they are going in, and it'll be quite interesting to see the direction they will be going to even watch. It looks like if you study carefully for what they did in Thunderbolt and what they've done in Fantastic Four, the threats are on a global scale, possibly multiversal. So, and particularly with the what's it called, Fantastic Four. So obviously, I'm sure they are trying to make sure that they don't dial back down to the areas when the conflicts or the conflicts are personal. That they may do in Spider-Man, but looking at the new direction they are going in, it looks like they would always elevate the threat level in all the movies to ensure that it's engaging and keeps us coming for more, and perhaps reserve the more personal conflict or conflict for the smaller, the TV series. So that is quite interesting to see as to how they are going about it. But I'm really interested in what Jake Schreier will be doing with the X-Men series. So let me know your thoughts on this particular story, whether you think that's the right direction for them to go, or you think a little bit of the past X-Men stories can, I mean, as captured on screen, can still be introduced and will not still, dim what they are doing. So whatever your thoughts or perception may be, kindly leave them in the comment section below and we'll take a look at it. So my last story, but not the least, comes from the country of Ghana, and one of Ghana's amazing actress, Beverly Afaglo, has has had concerns. So she happened to be on a show, I mean, on Adom TV, and they were having discussions on the film industry in general. And she being in the industry for that long and with her experience, she did make known some concerns. And I thought it is very It's something worth discussing. Let me just read it first. So um, on the Ghana web page, it says that Ghana lacks professional editors in our movie industry. Beverly Afaglo, and I think it might be quite generic, or I don't think, but let's read further. Maybe you will understand further. I want to know for sure the context in which she said this. So she said that Ghanaian filmmaker, this article says that Ghanaian filmmaker Beverly Afaglo has attributed Ghana's crippling film industry to lack of skilled editors. Speaking on Adom TV during a panel discussion, Beverly said the problem in Ghana's movie industry is not about talent, but about how movies are put together after filming. She cited Hollywood actress Taraji P Henson's performance in the movie Straw, arguing that many Ghanaian actors are capable of delivering the same level of performance seen in international films. However, Ghana's challenge, she noted, is that the final output often doesn't match quality because editing is poorly done. She emphasized that a professional editor plays a very important role in filmmaking, but in Ghana, many editors do not meet the standard needed for a high quality production. So here, I mean, let me just pause briefly here. So here, I do agree with her to an extent that the role of an editor is crucial in making, in contributing to the success or the effectiveness of a story being told in a film. So I do agree with her on that front. So it does prove the title a little bit wrong, as if it's a blanket statement that says that we don't have professional editors, which is not the case. There are professional editors, but I think, yeah, it captures it that well. So let's continue briefly. So she says that she added that even when an actor gives a strong performance in a scene, the final result may not look impressive if the editor picks the wrong shots. The writing and directing the film were exceptional. Everything came together beautifully to evoke emotions. While Taraji did an outstanding job, the success of the film cannot be attributed to acting alone. It takes a skilled crew working in harmony to achieve this level of quality. For instance, a professional editor is crucial. As we lack such professional editors, some editors in Ghana do not deliver satisfactory work. You can act a movie scene and notice that despite a good performance in a particular scene, poor editing can undermine it. Often the editor may miss key shots. If they had chosen a close up in a certain moment, it could have created a mood that resonates with more with the audience, Beverly stated. So there's an excerpt of it, but I won't show it for now. In some regards, I do agree with what she said, but then let me just dial back. In every film production, every person or crew personnel is very vital to the entire creative process. However, key to all this film is the director. And most often, this is what happens when the film is shot and it gets to the post production process. The editor takes a first shot or a first shot at editing the entire project first. And when the editor is done, that is when the director comes on board, sits down with the editor, and then um, what do we call it? Goes through the editing and finalizes it for screening or for whichever platform it to be aired in. So, in as much as she may be making this statement, the final output of the work doesn't depend actually on the editor. It depends on the director because that is his creative vision. So if the director leaves the editor to do the work and finalize it without his full input, then it means that the